The Supreme Court rarely declares laws unconstitutional for violating the 10th Amendment. In the modern era, the court has only done so where the federal government compels the states to enforce federal statutes. In 1992, in New York for only the second time in 55 years, the Supreme Court invalidated a portion of the federal law for violating the 10th Amendment. The case challenged a portion of the Low-Level Radioactive Waste Policy Amendments Act of 1985. The Act provided 3 incentives for states to comply with statutory obligations to provide for the disposal of low-level radioactive waste. The first 2 incentives were mandatory. The third, which was challenged in the case, obliged states to take title to any waste within their borders that was not disposed of prior to January 1, 1996, and made each state liable for all damage. According to the 10th Amendment, the government of the United States has the power to regulate only matters delegated to it by the Constitution. The Commerce Clause is one of the Article 1 Section 8 powers specifically delegated to Congress, and thus its interpretation is very important in determining the scope of federal legislative power. In the 20th century, complex economic challenges of the Great Depression triggered a re-evaluation in both Congress and the Supreme Court of the use of Commerce Clause powers to maintain a strong national economy. The federal system limits the ability of the federal government to use state governments as an instrument of the national government. However, where Congress has the power to implement programs or to regulate, there are sound reasons for the national government to encourage states to become the instruments of national policy, rather than to implement the program directly. One advantage is that state implementation of national programs places implementation in the hands of local officials who are closer to the area. Another advantage is that implementation of federal programs at the state level tends to limit the growth of the national bureaucracy. For this reason, Congress often seeks to exercise its powers by offering or encouraging the states to implement national programs consistent with national minimum standards, a system known as cooperative federalism. One example of the exercise of this device was to condition allocation of federal funding where certain state laws do not conform to federal guidelines. For example, federal educational funds may not be accepted without implementation of special education programs in compliance with IDEA. Similarly, the nationwide state 55 mph speed limit, .08 legal blood alcohol limit, and the nationwide state 21-year drinking age were imposed through this method. The states would lose highway funding if they refused to pass such laws. State sovereignty resolutions, as of October 2009, update. State sovereignty resolutions, or 10th Amendment resolutions, have been introduced in the legislatures of 37 states. In 7 states the resolutions passed: Alaska, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Tennessee.